On an island with the land level at sea level, there is a small town that has gone through a lot of pain. It used to be very prosperous with rich fishery resources, but now people are leaving one after another, causing it to gradually decline. There are only about 100 people left on the island. In order to maintain the normal life of the town, 2 boats travel between the island and the mainland every day. One day, a young man named Riley Flynn, who had been away from home for many years, suddenly returned to the town. His mother happily ran to pick him up. It turned out that Riley had accidentally hit and killed a little girl with his car. From then on, he was sentenced to 4 years in prison. Perhaps because of the guilt towards the little girl, Riley could not relax every day in prison. Riley often saw the little girl appear right in front of him. He continued to live without a goal. Therefore, he could only return to the small town that he had been away from for many years. He also hoped to be able to open the chains in his heart. Following Riley back to town was another young man. In the darkness, Keller used his phone light to see inside. At this moment, there was a knocking sound inside. He hesitated for a moment and then opened it. From this day on, the long-standing peace of the town seemed to be broken. Night fell. The young men went to the picnic area to drink and chat. When the atmosphere reached its climax, they began to discuss the thrilling legends in the town. Suddenly, there was a miserable cat cry. They thought that the wild cats were fighting. A young man accidentally saw a pair of glowing eyes in the dark that had disappeared. After the young men left, Cat was still quietly coming to its companions, and his companions seemed to have died. At this time, Riley returned home, rarely having the chance to gather with his family. No matter how Riley lived outside, his mother was obviously very happy that he could return to her side. Riley also expressed his thoughts. He hoped that tomorrow his mother could take him to church to pray for God to forgive his inner self. Riley's mother knew that he had never believed in these things, but in order for Riley to quickly escape from these difficult days, she agreed. The next day, Riley went to church with his parents. It was also at this moment that he saw a childhood friend, Erin Green. She seemed to sense something, so she turned her head to look at him. At this moment, a young priest stepped onto the podium. He told everyone that his name was Paul Hill. The previous priest had to go to the mainland for treatment due to health reasons. Later, Paul would replace him to perform mass for the people in the town. After the mass ended, Paul quickly received the love of people. Riley also went to see his childhood friend Erin. Riley remembered that Erin used to be a naughty and smart girl, but now her eyes were filled with serenity. Through conversation, he learned that she had just returned to town a few months ago. She had started a family in the city but was not happy. Her husband was a violent man who liked to drink. Erin could not bear it anymore and finally returned to the small town. When she returned, she discovered that she was pregnant. Erin then said that when she and Riley left town, they had said that they would never return. Who would have thought that they would both return here now? It's true that God is playing tricks on people. Riley also told Erin what he had encountered. Erin looked at Riley, who was drowning in self-blame, and she could only cheer him up. She hoped that he could soon get out of the impasse. When night fell, a storm hit town. Riley looked out the window and suddenly saw someone walking in the rain outside. He quickly called his family to come and see, but his family didn't see anyone. Riley said that the other person looked very much like the town's old priest, Pruitt. Everyone said it was impossible, because when Paul arrived in the morning, he said that Pruitt had gone to the mainland to get treatment. In order to prove that he wasn't hallucinating, Riley chased after him. Riley shouted loudly for Pruitt. Pruitt seemed to see someone chasing him, so he hurried forward. But then Riley lost track of Pruitt. Riley thought he might have seen wrongly, so he hurried back home. Early the next morning, heavy rain devastated the whole town. Seagulls gathered in flocks to fly in the sky as if to congratulate everyone who survived the disaster. But when the Riley family went to the beach, they saw many dead cats. Such a strange scene quickly shocked the whole town. After checking, they discovered that Cat's neck seemed to have been bitten off by some animal. Some people guessed that a shark or an osprey had attacked them. In order to prevent the spread of infectious diseases, they were forced to burn the cat's body. At this time, Paul went to the house of the female doctor in town, Sarah. Paul said that he had heard that Sarah's mother was unable to attend mass due to health problems, so he came here specially to perform mass for her. After Paul entered the house, the old woman mistook Paul for Father Pruitt. Sarah hurriedly explained that this was the town's new priest named Paul. After Sarah left, Paul looked at the old woman like an old friend with regret. Then he gave her something called holy water to drink. He also told her that this was a blessing from God. Since Riley came back, he still didn't have any goals. There was no trouble in this town. The people living on the island were very free and easy. Maybe this was a good place to live. Riley was walking on the road when he met Erin. The two talked about small stories from when they were little. At night, when Riley went to sleep, he dreamed that he was sitting alone on a small boat. The girl he stabbed to death appeared in his mind. She was like a nightmare that always haunted him. Outside the town, there seemed to be a strange object hovering in the sky. die. A person coincidentally passed by here. He heard a strange noise coming from the house, so he went up to check. He thought that someone in town was playing a joke on him. Across the street, a pair of big, sparkling eyes were watching him. Ever since Paul came to this small town, he seemed to have brought with him a magical power that made the townspeople start to attend the mass. At this moment, he walked in front of a girl who had been disabled for many years. They saw him holding a symbol of God's grace. When he was about to give it to the girl in front of everyone, he suddenly took a few steps back. He told her to come and get it herself. Everyone thought he was joking. Lisa pushed her wheelchair and was about to go over there to get it, but Paul said that she should stand up and get it. Seeing Paul's serious expression, everyone thought that he was deliberately making things difficult for a disabled girl. But Lisa seemed to sense something. Paul's actions completely conquered the people present. Everyone couldn't believe it. Lisa's parents quickly took her to Dr. Sarah. Sarah checked and found that Lisa's body now only had a common spinal injury. Slowly recovering, Lisa would quickly be able to move like a normal person, but Sarah looked very surprised. It was clear that Lisa was paralyzed on one side. Why did she suddenly recover so slowly? Lisa's parents said it was the priest's blessing. After they left, Sarah returned to her house and saw that her mother was not lying on the bed. She heard a noise upstairs and hurriedly ran up. Sarah saw her mother in the room on the second floor. She didn't understand how her mother could come up here. It was clear that her mother had been sick for many years. Since the next day after Paul arrived, it seemed that her mother had truly received God's blessing. From then on, the townspeople sought God's grace. The nun advised everyone not to overreact. They had to believe the priest would bring hope to everyone. Riley also sought out Paul. Riley had no faith in God, but Paul seemed to know what Riley had gone through. Paul thought that Riley had come to seek help, but Riley directly asked Paul if he had known that Lisa could stand up beforehand. Riley thought that Lisa's body was probably already recovering. This incident happened at the right time, making everyone think that Paul had cured Lisa. Paul did not expect Riley to come to question him. Paul said that he did not care about fame, he just wanted to help the townspeople. Paul did not know how to answer Riley. Because of what Riley had encountered, Paul also hoped that he would be blessed by God. Perhaps only then could Riley be saved. But following materialism for a long time made Riley feel that it was all a coincidence. No matter how you put it, the townspeople believed in Paul. This represented God's will. More and more people came to church to attend Mass. Riley also started to attend regularly. In his spare time, Paul would still go to Sarah's house to hold Mass for her elderly mother. Her mother could now walk up the stairs by herself. From then on, Lisa started dating Riley's younger brother. Meanwhile, Riley and Aaron were making a crib for her unborn baby. Riley's parents were happy and dancing. It seemed that everything was going well. But one day, Paul suddenly fainted while presiding over Mass. Everyone was very worried about his health. They thought that he had been working too hard during this period of time. But when Paul woke up, everyone had left. He quietly went into the baptismal room. He began to repent of his actions to God. He said that he had lied, but it was all for the good of the people in the town. It turned out that Paul was the old priest Pruitt. That year, when he and the sect's tour group headed to Jerusalem, he often got lost in the places he had passed through due to his old age and his serious illness. The people around him did not know his condition. They thought he was just unfamiliar with the road. Pruitt did not dare to tell anyone because he was afraid that he would lose his position as priest. But it seemed that he also felt that he had reached his limit. He was prepared to wait until he finished and then go to a place on land to heal until he died. But one day, he got lost on the way. His consciousness was confused, so he didn't know that he was lost. A strong wind blew, and he got lost in the desert. At that moment, he saw an ancient relic. In order to avoid the strong wind, he went into a dark cave. There was no light here. Every step he took was like stepping into nothingness. When he lit a match and was about to observe the surroundings, he suddenly saw a pair of bright eyes. He was startled. When he lit another match and was about to check, a strange human face appeared right in front of him. It was like a demon biting his neck directly. Fear and pain began to spread throughout his body. Perhaps he was old and no longer clear-headed. He saw that this person had a pair of giant wings, so he thought it was an angel. He began to pray for the so-called angel to be blessed. After seeing this sentence, the man also slit his wrist to let Pruitt drink its blood. When Pruitt went to the cave entrance, he saw that he had regained his youthful strength. From then on, Pruitt vowed to treat it as an angel. Although the angel was afraid of sunlight, Pruitt knew that his small hometown needed it, so Pruitt put the angel in a chest and returned. Pruitt also changed his name to Paul. Finally, Paul begged for God's forgiveness. Pruitt's lie was indeed for the people in the town. Pruitt hoped that the old and disabled people could have a new life like him. After Paul returned, he sucked the angel's blood and put it in something called the aura. This action was seen by Riley's younger brother Warren, but Warren had no idea what this was. After all, Paul's appearance had brought hope to everyone, and these things would be made into Holy Communion for believers to use. At this time, Aaron went to Dr. Sarah to check check the fetus. Seeing Sarah checking again and again, Aaron asked about the condition of the fetus. But Sarah seemed to have discovered something wrong. Sarah told Aaron that the baby in her stomach had disappeared. Hearing this, Aaron did not understand what this meant. Sarah also found it hard to believe. Why did the baby suddenly disappear? Sarah said that she would bring Aaron's blood to the mainland for a test. Then she would tell them to contact Aaron. Perhaps the instruments there could find out the specific cause. However, it seemed like there had been a miscarriage. Aaron couldn't believe that her child had suddenly disappeared. Aaron asked where her child had gone, but Sarah didn't know how to comfort Aaron. Lisa had been paralyzed for many years. After her legs recovered, Lisa went to Sturge's house in town. It turned out that Lisa's legs had been paralyzed that year because Sturge had accidentally attacked her. Ever since Lisa couldn't walk anymore, Sturge had been living in self-blame and guilt. At this time, Lisa kindly said that it was Sturge who caused the consequences, but in the end, she said that she would forgive him. She hoped that he would no longer live to blame himself. Hearing this, Sturge immediately burst into tears. The only person he had wronged in his life was her. Who would have thought that one day she would have hope and stand up again? When Riley came to find Paul again, Sturge was already sitting inside. Both of them had never believed in God before. Who would have thought that after witnessing the miracle of a little girl, they would gradually change their minds? Perhaps soon the entire village would become Paul's followers. Paul told them to relax and try their best not to touch alcohol. After the two of them left, Paul's body started to have unpleasant symptoms again. Something seemed to be moving in his stomach. Lisa's parents were sitting in the nun's house. Perhaps they came to thank Paul. It was only after Paul pushed the door open and entered that he fell to the ground. Then his whole body started to convulse. A strange red liquid flowed out of his mouth. Everyone was terrified when they saw this scene. After that, Paul lay still. After Lisa's father checked on Paul, he said that Paul's condition was not very good. At this time, Paul's eyes were filled with blood red. When everyone thought that Paul had returned to heaven, he suddenly woke up. This made it hard for the others to believe. At the same time, they felt that this was a blessing from God. After everyone left, Bev brought food into Paul's room. This girl had a very fervent belief in God. That was why she was now very respectful to Paul. When she was about to open the curtains, Paul stopped her. Perhaps she sensed his unusual behavior. When she left the room, she told Paul that people outside would keep it a secret and be his good apostles. But perhaps Paul should also tell them who he was all along. At this time, Bev had guessed that Paul was probably Pruitt. She wanted Paul to prove it to everyone. Under the influence of such a miracle, perhaps more people would become their believers. After Bev left, Paul tried to stretch his hand out in the sunlight, but a serious burn appeared. Perhaps the blood of a vampire could slowly assimilate humans. Previously, Paul could still walk in the sunlight. Now that his body had assimilated into a vampire, not only could he not come into contact with sunlight, but his body was also in a state of uncontrollability. He picked up the cross and hoped to gain God's forgiveness. But at this moment, the palm of his hand was burned by the cross. When Paul saw the fresh blood flowing out, he could not control his bloodlust and began to slowly suck it in. When night fell, Paul left the house. He stretched out his hand to try to contact the air outside. It seemed that the night had no effect on his body. Perhaps he could only walk in the dark in the future. He went to Dr. Sarah's house to find her mother. She had become young and could be seen with the naked eye. This was also the reason why Paul let her drink vampire blood for a long time. Although it could make her body better, she would probably transform into a bloodthirsty monster in the near future. She also recognized Paul as Pruitt. They held each other's hands tightly. It turned out that they had been secretly together before, and Sarah was also Pruitt and her child. Because they were afraid that others would find out about this, they could only hide it silently. When Pruitt returned, he immediately wanted his lover to return to the past. At this time, Aaron came to find Riley. They told each other their sufferings. The two friends breathed softly, although they had returned to the village because of fate. But it also made their hearts gradually closer together. When Paul returned home, his body had a problem again. There was only a little vampire blood left, and the so-called angel did not know where it had gone. He was tormented by hunger. Paul went outside and shouted for the angel, but he did not receive any response. He was helpless and could only return to his room to drink up the remaining blood. At this moment, Sturge came to the door. Sturge could not satisfy his craving for alcohol, so Sturge went to Paul for help. Seeing that Paul was not well, Sturge was about to leave, but Paul told Sturge to sit down first. After Sturge entered, he saw that Pruitt was exactly like Paul when he was young. Sturge thought that Paul was Pruitt's illegitimate son, so he was embarrassed and wanted to leave. But Paul used the name of God to appease Sturge. Paul also told Sturge to hold him for a while. It was also when Paul held Sturge tightly that he felt the fascination of blood. Even though Sturge started to resist madly, Paul did not let go. After Sturge struggled to get away, he accidentally bumped into the edge of the table. Fresh blood immediately flowed all over the floor. Paul slowly walked over. The uncontrollable bloodlust broke out at this moment. Paul sucked blood like crazy. Early the next morning, everyone at the church waited for a long time, but did not see Paul. Bev was helpless, so she could only go back to look for him. After she entered the house, she saw the body on the ground, and Paul huddled in the corner. Not only did she not feel scared, she also went to Paul's side and told him that she could help him change his clothes. Then he went to the church to hold a mass for everyone. When Paul stretched out his hand in the sunlight, Bev saw his burned palm. So she said that he should stay here first, and she would handle it. Obviously, the blind faith of heat had blinded this woman. She went to the church first and told everyone to pray on their own. Then she found two trustworthy people and went into the room. One of these two people was Lisa's father, and the other was a captain who often went to the mainland. She successfully brainwashed them. She also said that Paul was jealous of the devil, so he did that. Then she told the two of them to use the carpet to dispose of the body. Maybe faith can really change a person's point of view. After thinking for a while, the two of them started to act. At this time, Aaron had already gone to the mainland and went to find a doctor. They finished the blood test that Sarah had sent in earlier. The doctor told Aaron that according to the test report, they thought she had never been pregnant. This statement obviously shocked Aaron. She had clearly done it in the village before. She had even heard the heartbeat of the fetus. Aaron said that she had done all kinds of ultrasounds. Even the doctor in the village, Sarah, could prove it, but the doctor still said that they could not have done anything wrong. Aaron's body currently showed no signs of pregnancy or miscarriage. She was a completely healthy young woman. This statement completely shocked Aaron. At this moment, Paul was pacing back and forth in the church. He was calling for the angel in his heart. He needed the angel's blood. At this moment, a strange figure suddenly appeared before his eyes. Paul took a breath and said that he had nothing left. The so-called angel told Paul to stop talking. Then it walked straight over. Paul knelt down respectfully to receive it. At this time, Riley also came here. He saw the door was wide open, so he walked straight inside. Riley also saw a very strange scene. Paul walked slowly. Seeing Riley being bitten on the neck by the angel, Paul went to close the door. Sarah couldn't believe it. She looked at her mother, an old woman who was already old enough to bear it, looked even younger than Sarah. Sarah's mother said that she wanted to attend the morning mass with Sarah. At this time, the villagers had gathered outside the church. Sturge and Lisa's father told everyone that because Paul's health was not good, the mass time would be moved to the evening from now on. At this moment, Lisa's mother saw an unbelievable scene. It turned out that Sarah and her mother had also come here. Lisa's mother was very excited to see an old man return to his youthful state. Perhaps her husband had told her about Paul's condition. At this time, Aaron could not contact Riley, so she went to his house. But Riley's mother did not know where he had gone. He had been gone for a night and had not returned. So Aaron went to the pier and asked Riley's younger brother if he had seen him. At this time, no one had any news of Riley. Riley's younger brother reported this to his father. His father was also upset because of this. Ever since Riley had the car accident, he had been in a daze. Aaron couldn't find Riley, so she went to the police station to find the police chief. Aaron reported Riley's disappearance to the police. Aaron also said that Riley had previously intended to do something stupid. The police chief also said that recently there had been some strange things happening in the village. There had been a series of missing cases. Bill's wife also came here early this morning to report that her husband had been missing for several days. Bill was the one who entered the house that night and was knocked down by the vampire. When night fell and the mass began, Sarah and her mother also came. An old woman who was getting younger and younger came to see her lover. After the staff had gathered, Paul also stepped up to the podium to give a speech. But his speech today seemed different from before. He told everyone to prepare themselves for self-sacrifice. If everyone followed his instructions, they would probably die first and then be reborn. After Paul's stirring speech, he left the place. This speech surprised Sarah's mother. Perhaps Paul was no longer the Pruitt she knew. She went outside to warn her daughter not to come here again. Paul's words were going against the truth. Aaron was sleeping soundly when she suddenly heard a knock on the door. Aaron opened the door and found out it was Riley. She angrily asked him where he had been all day. She couldn't contact him no matter what, but he asked her if she still remembered the promise they made when they left the village. They had said they wanted to sit on a small boat and go out to the ocean to watch the sunrise. Riley hoped that Aaron could now wait for the sunrise with him. When the two of them sat on the boat and went out to the ocean, Riley said that he wanted to tell Aaron a story. Perhaps Aaron wouldn't believe this story, but he hoped she could hear everything. It turned out that yesterday, Riley was bitten in the neck by a vampire, and Paul helped him straighten his head. Paul also gave Riley vampire blood to drink. Since then, Riley also turned into a vampire. At that time, he was very scared. Although Paul hoped that Riley could sit down and talk, he went out. Seeing Riley's burned arm, Paul said that they needed to talk clearly. Paul would also explain to Riley the reason for everything. After Riley sat down, Paul told Riley what had happened to him. Paul had died died and come back to life. Everything was a blessing that an angel had given Paul. Riley looked at Paul with disbelief. Riley angrily asked him what was going on. Who is the person with the wings? Paul said, it was an angel. At this time, Bev also entered. Paul wanted to give Bev a test. Paul told Riley to sit on the chair. Then Paul held Riley back. Then Paul told Bev to slowly come closer. Although the bloodlust that started up made Riley understand that he had suddenly turned into a monster, but Paul told Riley that this was the power that the angel had given him. This power made Riley become younger and stronger. His body also received nutrients. He would also become very pure. Then Paul began to ask Riley about his feelings, but Riley said that he was only angry. Obviously, this statement angered Paul. After arguing for a while, Paul admitted it, but Paul felt that something was going against the core and principles of humanity. Even though immortality was achieved, it was built on the suffering of others. This was similar to the knot that had been in Paul's heart for many years. Not long after, Bev brought a bowl of fresh blood to Riley. They wanted to see Riley standing on their side with their own eyes. Riley couldn't control him either. Riley took the fresh blood and drank it all in one gulp. Normal people couldn't stop this bloodlust. When night fell, Riley came outside. Riley saw a different world through the eyes of the vampires. The light seemed brighter than usual and emitted a brilliant halo. Riley goes to the beach. His eyes seemed to widen, and he saw the light covering the sea. Even the stars in the sky were the same. After Riley finished telling the story, he told Erin that he wanted her to row to the mainland and never come back. But Riley knew Erin wouldn't do that. He also knew she didn't believe what he said. Riley could only let Erin see it with her own eyes. Although it was a bit selfish, Riley hoped that Erin could escape. Riley finally said what was in his heart. He loved Erin. He had loved her all his life. He said he had tried his best. He had tried his best. Riley used his life to explain the existence of vampires to Erin. Riley hoped that Erin could leave this village, but Erin naturally did not want to give up the village she had lived in since she was young. Erin decided to return to the village to seek help. At the same time, Riley's parents suddenly woke up. They also received the letter that Riley had left before he left. But after Riley's father saw it, he took the letter to Paul. At this time, these people were secretly discussing Easter. Riley's father said he wanted to talk to Paul alone. So when everyone left, Riley's father took out the letter that Riley left and asked Paul if something had happened to his son. Through the content of the letter, Riley's father thought that his condition was not quite right. It seemed that he had entered the path of evil. The letter also said many strange things. I wonder if Riley had hallucinations because of the previous incident. Paul understood that Riley probably wouldn't come back, so Paul comforted Riley's father that he might have reached the mainland. Before that, Paul also often contacted Riley and tried to untie the knot in his heart. Then Paul told Riley's father not to think too much. He had to believe in God. At this time, Erin went to Sarah. Erin told Sarah everything she saw. Erin wondered if she had hallucinated, but Sarah believed what Erin said. Sarah also discovered some crazy things. Sarah took Erin to her lab. Sarah said that if her discovery was made public, others would definitely think she was crazy. Sarah had always been doing experiments. When Erin said that Riley was burned by the sun, Sarah believed in her conclusion even more. Sarah's mother was getting younger and younger. This was truly unprecedented, so Sarah took a portion of her mother's blood to do the experiment. But when the blood was exposed to the sun, it would burn immediately. After she finished speaking, Sarah demonstrated it to Erin once. This was truly crazy. The burned blood activated the smoke generator in the house. Sarah's mother thought something was wrong, so she quickly ran over. Erin also saw that Sarah's mother was getting younger and younger. Then they sat down and began to discuss. Sarah said that this phenomenon was very similar to a type of Porphyria cutis B. People with the disease would be very sensitive to sunlight. They would even be burned by sunlight and become extremely anemic. But it wasn't this kind of disease. Sarah guessed it was probably a similar disease. The villagers seemed to be infected with some kind of virus or parasite. This thing could repair damaged cells, but it seemed to be getting crazier and extremely thirsty for iron in the blood. There was probably very little of this substance in the blood at first, but as it increased and through physical changes, it would become more obvious. Sarah continued speaking. Sarah took her mother's blood and Erin's blood to experiment and let it fall into the sunlight. The thing inside was quickly burned, and then only normal blood remained. Erin didn't understand why her blood also existed. Sarah said that when she did the pregnancy test for Erin, Sarah had kept her blood. Moreover, Sarah also believed that other people in the village must have this condition. Then Sarah continued to say that her mother and Erin's blood was mostly normal blood made up of typical red blood cells. Riley's blood probably had too high a count of this thing, which led to his burning under the sun. Erin asked what would happen to a pregnant woman if she was infected with this thing. Sarah understood Erin's meaning, but she still told Erin that this thing would attack targets inside and outside the human body, and the fetus was probably what the virus considered as its target. Erin was very sad when she heard this. The healthy baby baby had already died before it was born. Sarah's mother quickly asked if there was any way to solve it. Sarah said she had done many experiments. Currently, there were no clues. When Erin left Sarah's house, she continued to look for Riley's mother. Erin said that Riley was dead. Then Erin told Riley's mother everything that Riley had said. But Riley's mother thought Erin was crazy. After Riley's mother scolded Erin, she left. Sarah also went to the sheriff. Sarah told him about her experiment and Riley's story, because Riley's reputation was not good. Moreover, the sheriff did not trust Sarah at all. They had no choice but to go to the dock, but they found that the boat to and from the mainland had disappeared. It seemed that someone wanted to stop them from leaving the village. After all, tonight was Easter time. When night fell, Lisa and Sturge's father saw that the signal tower in the village had also stopped working. They did not want any other incidents to happen before Easter. At this time, Erin's group was discussing how to leave here, but this small island was too far from the mainland, so they couldn't rely on a normal boat to get there. Everyone was going to attend the mass tonight. Erin decided that she had to go too. Although she didn't know what would happen, Riley's sacrifice made Erin decide to do something. Not long after, Bev led a group of believers there. They held a solemn ceremony to celebrate this grand ceremony. Erin and Sarah looked at each other and decided to go to the church together to check it out, so they also joined in. After that, more and more people joined in. The whole group slowly walked towards the church. In the darkness, candles were burning like small candles. They thought that it would light up path to the future, but no one expected that what was waiting for them might also be destruction. After everyone arrived at the church, Paul apologized to everyone first. Paul said that Pruitt did not recover on the mainland, but that he had received the blessing of an angel. After that, Pruitt not only regained his health, but also regained his youth. After that, Paul told everyone that he was Pruitt. He hoped to receive everyone's forgiveness. He had no other choice, so he lied to everyone, but it seemed that these words did not arouse everyone's surprise. Erin could not believe it when she saw that everyone had no reaction. At the same time, Paul's most loyal follower was Sturge. Sturge came to celebrate the mass. Bev immediately ran to the back and took a bowl of fresh blood. There seemed to be some kind of poison on the table. It seemed that Paul wanted everyone to turn into vampires. Paul mixed the poison with vampire blood. If everyone drank it, the people of the entire village would truly be immortal. After Sturge drank it all very quickly, he lay on the ground, convulsing non-stop. This scene naturally stunned everyone. Paul comforted Sturge while telling the others to watch the miracle that was about to happen together. After the police chief saw this scene, he could not accept it, so he prepared to take his son away. At this moment, the police chief saw a vampire standing at the door. Paul said that this was an angel. The vampire standing at the door represented God, wanting to bring blessings to everyone. Then, to everyone's amazement, the vampire slowly walked to the high platform. When he stepped onto the platform, the vampire standing at the door spread its giant wings. Paul was still praising the greatness of the angel. At this time, Sturge also woke up. Paul continued to deceive everyone that a miracle had happened. He hoped that more people would join in. Lisa's parents ignored their daughter's fear. They stepped forward to help cover the poisonous blood. They began to distribute it to everyone. Lisa's mother personally got her a glass. The others were still not calm when they saw the angel's fear, but soon they held a glass of fresh blood. Paul loudly said that this was a blessing from God. As long as they had a little courage, they could gain immortality. The sheriff really couldn't listen anymore, so he took his son and prepared to leave again. But his son didn't seem to want to leave. His son broke free from his arms. Paul stepped forward and told the sheriff not to take away his son's chance to redeem himself. The sheriff immediately drew his weapon. The sheriff wouldn't allow others to harm his son, but he was stopped by the others. The weapon also fell to the ground. Bev quickly stood up and continued to deceive. She congratulated the sheriff's son on choosing the right path. The sheriff witnessed his son drinking all the poisoned blood. Then the others started drinking too. Erin and Sarah also tried to stop a few people, but everyone thought that the two of them were blocking everyone's hope for immortality. Then the whole poet started to riot. Sarah's mother wouldn't allow the person she loved to turn into this, so she picked up a weapon and shot at Paul. Bev saw Paul being shot and fell to the ground, so she quickly told Sturge to close the door. Bev came before the sheriff, preparing to punish him in the name of God, but Sturge saw the blood on Bev's hands. The bloodlust seemed to be triggered. Then the people who drank poisoned blood also slowly began to revive. After Lisa's mother revived, she saw a strange world in her eyes. After Lisa's mother hugged Lisa, she also heard a loud thumping sound coming from Lisa's blood. Lisa's father bit her neck again. It seemed that after these people were assimilated, they could not control their bloodthirsty desires. Then humans transformed into vampires and began to attack normal people. The door of the poet's house was locked. Erin's group had no choice but to run to the back. Riley's younger brother quickly pulled Lisa away. Riley's father was pressed to the ground because he was protecting them. In the critical moment, only a few of them escaped into a small room. The poet's house had already become a mess. In here, Later, Aaron also saw Bev. Bev was also very scared, but Bev was dissatisfied with Aaron's group. Bev also bragged about the glory of angels. Then everyone left the church through the back door. After everyone left, Bev suddenly sat up. Bev's eyes were shining. It seemed that Bev had used vampire blood before. Bev entered the church and saw that the hall was in chaos. Bev told Sturge to open the door, but Sturge said that Paul had not woken up yet, so he would not open the door. Paul was not dead either. It seemed that vampires were not so easy to kill, but Bev was dissatisfied that she was just a normal nun. Bev told Sturge that those who had rebelled against God must be dealt with. Bev would continue to shine the glory of Paul and the grace of the angel. The door must be open, and must be open forever. Otherwise, how could the blessing be spread? Sarah's mother suddenly sat up. After being bitten by a vampire, she had received communion for a long time. Now, she had turned into a vampire. Sarah's mother came into the church and saw Paul sitting there silently. It seemed that she was thinking about whether what he had brought to everyone was a blessing. The villagers who had turned into vampires had left early. They wanted to spread their blessings to every corner. A bloody massacre was carried out silently. These bloodthirsty monsters were madly attacking all the normal people in the village. They couldn't control themselves. Riley's father was on the road, and he saw everything. Although he had also turned into a vampire, he didn't want to be an accomplice to the vampires. Aaron and the other lucky ones were hiding in the house. They were discussing what they should do to leave this place. Riley's younger brother said he had a canoe, but it couldn't hold that many people. Aaron also discovered a terrifying thing, that there were a few fishermen in the village. If they brought their fishing boats to the mainland, the consequences would be unimaginable. So everyone decided to burn the boats first and destroy the church. At this moment, a bottle of kerosene was thrown inside. Bev and Sturge came outside. Bev shouted loudly that she wanted to send them her blessing, hope they don't know what's good for them. In order to protect everyone, Riley's mother decided that she would stay to buy time. After everyone left, Riley's mother took a knife and went out. First, she laughed at Bev a little. She said that Bev was nothing. Bev was just pitiful, weak, selfish insect. After saying these words, she cut her own throat. The two bloodthirsty monsters originally wanted to go up first to say something, but in the end they couldn't stop their bloodthirsty desires. They lay on the ground and sucked blood madly. When Paul talked to the person he loved, when Paul was given a second life, he felt like he had found true hope. He also hoped that he wouldn't die again in the future. Paul wanted to give the person he loved an immortal body, and to make sure that the other people in the village would not have to grow old, get sick, or die. That was why Paul put what he thought was an angel in the box and brought it back. That was why he lied so much. He didn't even dare to acknowledge his daughter Sarah. He had never felt that this was a crime before. But things were not as he had expected. Paul didn't know whether everyone's choices were right or wrong. Sarah's mother comforted Paul. She said that they had no right to interfere in their children's lives. Just like their daughter Sarah had grown up, they were old, so they should just leave it as it was. This was the truth of life. Hearing this, Paul seemed to have figured everything out. It turned out that the miracle he had been searching for was just following the progression of life. Aaron and the others also arrived at the dock at this time. They poured oil on all the fishing boats. Then they burned the boats to prevent any monsters from reaching the mainland. Lisa and Riley's younger brother hid in a room. They saw a vampire sucking human blood. Lisa shot it repeatedly, but it did not react. The vampire's thirst for blood seemed to have surpassed everything. The two quickly poured oil on the vampire's body. After lighting the fire, there were also miserable screams inside. The vampire ran out, carrying the body engulfed in flames, and flew away. Bev went to the church's warehouse to prepare a bed for everyone. First, Bev told Sturge to burn the entire village. Bev prepared to gather all the vampires here. Then wait until the next night. Bev led everyone to the mainland to spread the blessing. When the bell rang, the people who had turned into bloodthirsty monsters came. Bev saw that Paul was safe and sound, so she wanted him to become the leader of the vampire group. But Paul saw through everything. Paul refused and hoped they wouldn't do it. But this made Bev angry. Bev felt that Paul suddenly abandoned the vampires. Perhaps because of this woman, Bev hoped they could enjoy the good times before sunrise. Otherwise, there would be no chance later. Bev decided that she would lead the vampires herself so that all the vampires would hide in the church before sunrise. Then when night fell, they would lead them to the mainland. Sturge came forward and said that all the boats had been burned, so they couldn't reach the mainland. But Bev said that a cargo ship would arrive in a few days. By then, they would be able to reach the mainland. Then Bev gathered them together. Obviously, some of them still couldn't accept everything. Some of them even felt extremely guilty after sucking fresh blood. And what Bev had to do now was to stabilize their emotions. When Paul entered the church hall, he saw his daughter Sarah pouring oil everywhere. Paul immediately apologized to Sarah. Paul said he should have accepted Sarah sooner. Then Paul told Sarah to leave the church quickly. Paul would handle the rest. But suddenly, there was a gunshot. Sturge was seen raising his gun and shooting at Sarah. When Paul saw his daughter fall, he rushed in in and bit Sturge's neck. Sarah's mother asked Paul what was going on. After the two of them entered the church, they saw their daughter lying on the ground, not knowing whether she was alive or dead. Paul quickly put his blood into Sarah's mouth, but Sarah spat it all out. Maybe Sarah didn't want to become a monster. Perhaps she hated her father for creating this situation. Sarah left this world with her pain. Paul and Sarah's mother burned down the church in grief. Then, they carried Sarah's body out of the church. At this time, Bev found the sheriff pouring oil into the warehouse, so she shot him in the leg. Then, she angrily told the vampires that the sheriff wanted to kill them. Just as Bev was about to kill the sheriff, Aaron ran out of the warehouse. The scary vampire suddenly flew over and held Aaron down and started biting Aaron's neck. The sheriff's son picked up the lighter on the ground and saw his father, so he did not hesitate to burn down the warehouse. Now, all the rooms were burned. The vampires had nowhere to go. The sheriff told Bev that the sunlight would tell her what was good and what was bad. While the vampire was sucking blood, Aaron used a knife to stab the vampire's wing. The other vampires saw that their houses had been burned down and left the church. Perhaps when the sun rose again, they would all cease to exist. They could only stay with their families before disappearing. After sucking blood, the vampire's wings would already have thousands of holes, but the vampire still staggered away. The vampire was flying west to escape from the direction of the rising sun. Before the sun rose, Aaron lay on the ground and remembered what Riley had said. Riley had asked Aaron what would happen when they die. Aaron said that at that moment, the cells in their bodies would gradually die, but the brain would definitely fire the nerve cells crazily. Perhaps Aaron would feel despair and fear, but they shouldn't feel that way, because in that short moment, they will be busy recalling the memories of their lives. Until the end, they will be like an energy that dissolves into the sky and earth and returns to the original starting point. Maybe it will repeat itself, but in the end, they will still forget everything. Life is probably just a fleeting dream that repeats and repeats itself. Maybe Riley had already determined Aaron's answer at that time. Later, he used his own life to explain Aaron's answer. At this moment, the sun also slowly rose above the sea. At this moment, the vampire group probably understood that eternity is not the truth of life, but love is the truth. They crowded around their family and sang their favorite songs. Although Bev did not accept it, she still could not escape her fate. The moment the sun shone on the island, everyone burned their bodies to complete their redemption. Above is the entire content of the movie Midnight Mass. Thank you for watching. Goodbye, and see you again.